Nerdiest Prime.
Hi, and welcome to Nerdiest Prime, where we are reviewing every episode of Star Trek Discovery Season 5, and we are on Episode 4, which is called Strange Days,
Face the Strange.
Face the
Tomorrow
Strange.
is Yesterday.
Oh, buddy.
Oh my God! Come on.
It's a Bowie lyric. It's a David Bowie lyric.
Oh, is it? I didn't know that.
Yes.
What's the name of the episode?
Face the Strange?
Face the Strange, yeah.
No.
Yes.
Okay, so what did everybody think about this episode? Let's start with Jenny.
What do you mean, no?
No, I don't know the song. I mean, no, I don't know the song.
Oh, okay.
I don't get the.
No, it's not the name.
I'm picking up some odd energy fluctuations.
On our way.
We're in a wormhole.
No, it can't be.
Are you stuck in a time loop?
What?
Time bugs. They're designed to paralyze an enemy ship by randomly cycling them through time.
This has to be Maul and Locke.
We came prepared.
We saw our possible future. We can't let it happen. We cannot fail.
What I'm very curious about, Lucas specifically, having not watched most of Discovery, did you get anything out of this episode?
Well, okay, first of all, I've seen the first 5 episodes of season 1, so I get the basic premise.
Okay.
Alan talks about it a lot. And I made it I watched that Whoopi Goldberg thing. Was
Oh,
that?
you did? Yes.
Yeah. So I know everything I need to know.
Nice.
There was obvious gaps in the episode where I was like, I don't know what this is referring to, but since this show is very good at underlying every particular thing and explaining everything, I was never feeling out of the loop.
Nice.
So, but yes,
That's great.
and I enjoyed it, but I didn't have that sense of it's not like watching Shattered season 7 of Voyager, and then you see Seska, and then you're like, oh, it's Seska, oh, it's 7 and 9 when she was a Borg, and there's all this sort of. I don't have that emotional connection to those other episodes, so that's the same thing with this, right?
You know what? This felt like a Star Trek episode.
It's true. It does.
Interesting. That's good because it's apparently a Star Trek show.
I know, right? I know.
They're in the twilight of their days, and this is finally becoming a Star Trek show.
It felt Star Trek-y, which I enjoyed. Yeah. I like that.
Namir, what did you think?
I don't know. I mean, it was fine, and I am kind of caught up. I do know the characters, and I did watch all of season 1. And now that I think about it, I actually did watch most of season 2 and some of season 3. So I know kind of what's going on, but it didn't really, I don't know. It just felt flat to me. It didn't really felt kind of empty. I wasn't really interested. I was doing kind of other things at the same time. And then I would look up and be like, oh, I missed a whole bunch. Should I rewind it? Nah, I just kept watching. So I don't know why. It didn't feel right. I was getting into the main story arc of the season, the treasure hunt. And if they had done another treasure hunt episode, I think I would have been okay with it. But this just felt out of place. It's not, why do a Star Trek episode now? There's no point. Just keep doing Indiana Jones, National Treasure. It's fine. I don't mind. So that's where I stand.
Alan.
Well, I loved it. I thought it was a welcome breath of Star Trek air. It's what I've always wanted to show to do. And it's finally I don't know. I had a lot of thoughts, and I probably they'll just exit my head while I'm here talking about it. But it was great. I mean, I like that they focused on the strengths for the most part. I mean, Anthony Rapp is always great. I mean, Callum Keith Rennie continues to be great. Even Sonequa was good in this one, and they threw Reno in there for a couple scenes, and that's always fun to see her. So it felt like the trio again. It felt like TOS. We had Kirk, Spock, and McCoy. We had Raider, Stamets, and Burnham. and it was just
Mhm.
it was fun. It was for once these characters felt like they had some personality. Even the bridge crew didn't annoy me in this one. Like it's like, oh, they seem like just they're people that work on the ship, and they have you know, they're competent and they have personalities. I'm like, wow, where was this for the last 4 years? So I had a
So
really
so
great time with it. I love a you know a goof like a weird sci-fi gimmick.
Mhm.
And it's cool too. They did it with as a bottle show. Like they rarely do bottle shows. They usually just throw CGI at the wall and hope no one notices how long and tedious some of these episodes are. But you know, so it's like, wow, they competently did a science fiction Star Trek traditional story as a bottle show, and
Mhm.
it entertained me enough that I watched it twice. So you know, had a good time.
you drink that Kool-Aid,
Now you can
Alan.
go.
You go right ahead.
Oh my God! Can I not like something? Jesus Christ, man! You're not the only person people Hollywood makes TV and movies for.
He's right about that.
That's true.
That
There
is
are
true.
multiple people. There's at least
Mhm.
two.
Mhm.
Yeah,
There's
there's
4
a
right
handful of
here.
us out there.
That's true. That's a good
Yeah,
point.
I was like, why can't people like what you don't like?
Yeah, paraphrase it too. It's not all about you, basically.
Oh, it's true.
I think you're a resident snob, even
Mm.
more so than Namir.
Hey. Okay, so how do we feel about? There's like sort of two plots. There's the
Wait, you
there's
didn't actually. I don't think you actually gave us your opinion. You didn't say really.
I thought it was fine. That's what I liked.
Insightful as always.
I mean, I don't know that I know enough about Discovery to actually compare it to other things. The way that, for example, Alan can compare and say, "Oh, this is really good because of this." The things that I don't like about Discovery are still there. Generally speaking, I reckon it was like probably the most enjoyable episode of Discovery I've seen. And I like the science fiction gimmick, but it's all like in the execution. It's like data lore. It's a great concept, but it doesn't really the way that they put it together doesn't really pay off for me. That's my feeling.
It's much
So
better
there's
than
two
data lore.
there's two plots in this, which is like part of the overall plot, which is this thing with the what are they called, the two bad guys that are that put this
Marlon
little
Locke?
bug on the ship that makes it go to do like a cause and effect kind of time loop thingy. And then there's the actual time loop part of the plot, which is trying to figure out like what's going on and resolving that.
What was a time loop? Why are people saying time loop? There was no loop in this at all.
It's true. It was a
cone.
conical
Yeah, it's true.
spiral thing.
It was a
It
spirally
never
thing.
looped. There was never a
Yeah.
loop at any point.
That is true. Time
Look-
loop.
look
It
at
just
what
rolls
they
off
did.
the tongue. though.
It's like a time jump. It's like more like a time jumping or something.
Yeah.
Well, it did
Yeah.
kind of loop because they ended up in the same place, basically.
You know what it's like? It's like on Lost after they moved the island and then they were like jumping randomly through time.
That's right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
Like that.
yeah.
I totally
Quantum
forget
Leap.
Lost.
Yeah, exactly.
It's very complicated.
Yeah. you know.
What?
It made complete sense. What are you talking about?
I mean, yeah, it's interesting because this episode made me think of going back to what I was saying before about kind of mining the next generation kind of stuff. It's like sort of reminds me of Parallels, and it reminds me of Cause and Effect. So, anyways, how did we feel about the sort of science fiction gimmick of the time jumping that's not in a loop? Alan.
I'm a sucker for a high concept, you know, weird science fiction anomaly gimmick. This is kind of my favorite Star Trek, between the moral dilemma ones and the goofy, weird science fiction stuff. That's you know, my bread and butter when it comes to this franchise. So I ate it all up. We can start these food metaphors again. Lucas loves
Nice.
food metaphors. So,
Jenny, what did you think?
Yeah, I thought it was just a like fun, concept for if they're gonna take an episode and do something like off the track of this treasure hunt that they're doing, and I mean I know it's part of it, but it was separate. But what I especially liked about it was that they when they talked about the time bug, and he said it was a chronophage, throwing back to Voyager.
Yes,
which
nice
I thought
deep cut.
was that was like that like that was one of the first like other show like universe references that I was like, that makes sense to put that there. Thank you. Like that actually is it doesn't feel just like plopped in,
And the temporal wars from Enterprise and all that.
Yeah.
All tied into that.
Yeah, exactly. So
Yeah,
that I like that very much. I liked, I mean Star Trek, the best those the best science problems on Star Trek are a backdrop to drama, or like character development. And they actually did that, I think, pretty well. Asterisk. Yeah, through this episode.
Yeah, I thought it was fine. I like time travel episodes, but I think there's a lot of them now, especially in Star Trek. So I kind of feel like if you ever encounter yourself, really the response should be, time travel, and the other person's like, yeah, time travel. Okay.
Yes.
And then you just kind of move on. You know what I mean? Like
100%
it's never
agree.
Yeah, it shouldn't be like, oh my God, why are you here? You're me. You must be a shapeshifter. Like at this point, they should just know, and they should have some protocols around it. They should understand what's going on. So that kind of bugged me a little bit. I thought I like the time travel episodes where the main problem is causality, like where you can't change anything in the past because it's going to screw up the future. And they totally got rid of that in this episode, which I still don't quite understand how that works. But that's the dilemma, right? Like that's whatever. I mean, I don't know. Like you time travel, so it should make a difference, right? But that's the danger. And they totally removed that, right? So I didn't really see the problem with anything that they were doing, right? Basically, they just had to capture a bug. That was it. So the stakes were really, really low for me. So it's like another example of like, Discovery trying something and then not quite pushing it as far as they should take it, like kind of playing it really safe, which I think this show does a lot, and it ends up being boring.
Is Discovery, have they in the past been like referencing other Star Trek episodes, or is this something that's more new to this season? Because there seems to be a lot of references to other episodes in the same way that they did in Picard.
They started doing it last season, or at least once they got to the future, they started throwing in little things here and there. But this season, there's been more, definitely, like noticeably more.
And do you guys like that? Do you guys feel like it adds and it gives it more continuity, or?
I mean, I appreciate the effort in sort of.
They're showing off
bringing showing that and that it is the same universe, but it's not always. I find it's a bit like ham-fisted, like it's often. But I found
it's like it's not a dumb callback like say the punk on the bus in Star Trek Picard. Like that was kind of stupid.
That was awesome.
That whole scene. Well, I mean, he acted really weird, and I was like, well.
He's evolved.
That felt very like shoehorned in, but mentioning the Krenim as part of the temporal Cold War or temporal wars, that makes sense. It's like that tracks. I'm like I'm not bothered by that. And the
like
casual viewer won't even know. It's like they're just talking, gibberish politics. But to people who watch the show, it's like I get that reference. I'm Steve Rogers. It's like I get that reference.
Yeah.
Lucas like, I don't know who Steve Rogers is.
Oh God.
Nice.
I deliberately went there instead of saying Captain America. See if he would know. Of course he didn't.
Now he gets it. Oh, that's amazing.
Oh, I'm Captain America. I'm like the guy who got frozen for like 100 years, and like, what's going on?
Yeah.
What are the Simpsons?
And then they mentioned the Model T, and you're like, I know what that is.
I do.
Well, he's Capitan Quebec.
Yeah, I don't want to give this show like a hard time, but I think the reason that I don't mind giving it a hard time is if I'm feeling like whoever's making the show, whatever show it is, they're doing their best, and maybe that's not quite working out or something like that. Then they have some good ideas. I can respect that. But what I'm feeling with this, like my problem with this episode, like with the rest of Discovery, is that, like, for example, this episode, the way it's executed, it feels like it's made for 13-year-olds. Like, it's just that level of how they're talking to each other and how they're working the things out. And that's what I have a really hard time with. And maybe it's meant for 13-year-olds. And if it is, then that makes sense and I'm fine with it. But if it's not made for, if it's meant for me or meant for adults, and this is what they think adults want to watch, then that's where I'm having trouble. So I'll give you examples specifically in this episode where, kind of like to Namir's point, where they're doing the, she runs into each other and she has to convince herself. And I think that happens about 3 times in this episode where somebody has to convince the other person that they're really who they say they are by saying some personal information about something. And it's already like a cliche. It's already a trope that you see so many times. I knew your mother. Your mother liked ice cream. She used to sit on the porch and had ice cream with vanilla ice cream.
It makes the most sense to do if you're in that situation.
Mm-hmm.
Does that not make the most sense to do if you're in that situation? Like, I know something personal about you. Like, if I met you,
Alan,
I know.
I don't want to pick on you, Alan, but like Namir said last week, something that makes sense in the real world is not the same thing as something that's entertaining on TV. And so I do agree with you, Alan. That is the thing that would make the most sense. 100% agree. It is not entertaining to watch, especially if they do it 3 times in the same episode.
Yeah, actually, yeah. Like if they hadn't done it and then Raynor had to do it at the end, that would have been like very impactful.
Mm-hmm.
Ooh, that's a good point. That is a very good point.
Also,
but he did do it at the end. That was the whole but the whole personal thing.
But if they had solved that problem another way, and then he was the one who had to, like it wasn't just like, oh, we just all do this. You know what I mean? Like he had to figure it out and be like, oh, I actually do know these people. You like,
yeah. Because I did like that part of the episode and that part of his arc, but. But Michael Burnham had done it to herself already, like in the episode. Yes.
And then to the bridge crew.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so, there's so many more things that we could have done that were interesting. And I'm like, if you're going to bring in, for example, Michael Burnham, like that was my favorite part of the episode was the season 1 Michael Burnham meeting with and I was like, oh, they got to like, and I'm trying to figure out how they did her hair. Like it just went crazy. Like her hair is totally different. How did they do that? I don't know.
Wigs? I don't know.
But it was just, it reminds me of Troy when she's in Face of the Enemy in TNG season 6, and she has like super short Romulan hair. And I'm like, what happened to her hair? How did they do that?
You need to look up how they put wigs on people.
They have a whole department dedicated to that.
Yeah.
Starts with braids.
With braids?
If you have lots of hair, lots of hair, they braid it and like make like a braid crown that like is the things that make it as small as possible, and then they slap a wig on top.
Right,
Lucas thinks that like when they made Star Trek Nemesis and they had a whole Romulan Senate and everybody, there was like 300 people walking around Hollywood for like a month afterwards with Romulan hair because they had to cut their
that would be
hair
amazing.
That would be incredible, yeah.
What a commitment for such a terrible movie.
And a goofy hairstyle.
I understand how wigs work. I'm just saying, if somebody already has long hair, how do you fit a little wig on a and I
Well,
don't know.
okay,
Yes,
listen.
yeah.
This could be the opposite. I think she might have braids. I think
She does.
like so that, but like those braids might be clip-on braids, so her hair might actually just be short in
Could
real
just
life.
be hair extensions. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Mhm.
I don't know.
I
I
just,
mean, like,
anyways, that part fascinated me. I was like, they put a lot of effort into making her younger self, and I appreciated that.
and I do want to point out that this episode, from my perspective, was so boring that we've been talking about her wig for the past like 5 minutes, right? And not any other
Well,
part of the episode.
And it's funny because I didn't even like
okay.
her wig that much.
Well. I will say,
I was like,
being a Discovery viewer for all these years, I actually felt her season 1 character felt kind of off from what I know of
me
season
too.
1.
Yes, me
She
too.
seemed very hyper aggressive and
Yes.
angry.
I
And I'm
literally
like,
wrote that
but she
down.
was raised
Past
on
Michael
Vulcan.
is aggressive. Yeah.
Yeah. And
But
she
you
was
know
like,
what?
she was kind of sullen and quiet. She had a chip on her shoulder, but she was still kind of Vulcanish because she was raised on Vulcan.
She was really
So
reserved.
yeah, that's what I'm looking for.
But she was
And
more
this one, she just
interesting.
hyper aggressive. I'm like, ready to fight.
Yeah, but this Burnham,
She seemed
the
weird,
past
though.
Burnham in this episode was much more interesting to me, right?
Well,
I'm like, oh,
It
she's an
was,
interesting
but
kind of character.
It just didn't ring true having like spent
yeah,
time with
exactly.
that version of her earlier, Yeah. But that said, that fight, the staging was fantastic. Like I thought they did a really good job putting it together.
Yeah, that was good.
But I was like, why is she being so like squirrely?
Yeah, I think that wouldn't be her go-to move. Maybe eventually, if stuff. But I feel like the scientist in her would because she's like a xenobiologist by profession. So like, why would she start by just learning and studying and
100%?
Yeah, it was weird.
No, that's the show.
Well, that's kind of what I don't have any of this background stuff that you guys have, but that was my feeling about the mini Burnham having her there was to feel like, okay, I think if you're gonna bring a character like that in, it has to be the whole show, or it has to be like when alternate Riker shows up at with like crazy hair and parallels, and he's like there for 5 seconds. He's like, Don't take us back. The Borg are everywhere. And then they blow him up. It's like either it's one of those things or it's the episode. But to kind of have her in and out for like half the episode and not really do anything. I think if there was a real kind of relationship, what I was hoping was going to happen was that young Burnham was going to learn something from old Burnham, and that old Burnham was going to like get some insight on herself and young Burnham. But instead they just had a long fist fight. And there was, and I think also there's something interesting about, especially given where she is in her life, for her to talk to her past self and be like, "Hey, little buddy, I'm there for you," and their sort of connection, her connection to herself, being the thing that makes the show work or the episode work, and again, that didn't really happen.
I still don't really understand how causality doesn't come into this. Like, there's a warp bubble, but she's still changing the past. Like she's still talking to these people in the past.
Well, like you said, I mean, it ends up being like, why didn't they just go onto the ship and shoot everybody because they knew nothing was going to happen? Like,
well, yeah, exactly. Like it just seemed like a cop out.
Your friends?
Well, yeah, I know, but you know what I mean. Like,
but if there's no
who
effect,
cares if
why
they
not?
get seen? Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. You just transport them all out into space, and it's totally fine.
Well, I don't think for most of the episode they didn't have a solution. And then they had a solution towards the end.
I
guess
before that they were operating on the temporal prime directive.
Yeah.
It's like don't mix with the past people.
I also found the ship to be conveniently empty. You know what I mean? Like aside from the people that Stamets like shoes out of engineering, there's literally no one else on the ship except for the people on the bridge. So I don't know. That felt squirrely.
I know.
Also,
it seemed like when the show had a really high budget in the first season,
there were so many people.
Crowded. There was tons of people, and now it's like third season TOS, which is like empty hallways. Season 1 is like people doing stuff and they're farting around with little panels and drills and playing with, and then in the background there's nobody in the background. Now it's like that's extra money. We need that money for whatever.
Yeah,
like we don't need hall filler.
And I understand, when they came to the future, initially there were less people on the ship because
That is
not
true.
everybody
Yeah, yeah.
came,
They only
but like
because I
this
think like
is
80 some or 70 some people
mhm,
come. So yeah,
something
I
like
mean,
that.
but yeah, the season one that ship should have been full of like scientists and all
Hmm.
Yeah.
sorts of things and military
Yeah.
people. Their war,
hmm
It did
but
feel like this episode was like a money saving one because
Yeah.
there
Yes.
wasn't even Saru. Like they saved a bunch of money on not having Saru do his makeup because
He was
he
on
was
the
convenient.
ground, or did they actually show his face? No, they did for a
that
second,
could that could have
but
been
it could have.
possibly just stock footage from that episode too.
That's true because they
Hmm.
didn't actually like. Yeah, true.
Because they were like, I think that was. I mean, I'm, as you guys know, not a big Discovery fan, and I don't know a whole lot about it. But I know that he was the captain at some point, and that would have been. And they have such a close relationship,
hmm
from what I can tell. So that would have been interesting to go into like a time bubble where Saru was the captain, and she had to like remember we're like best friends, and you need to help me. Like it was kind of weird to not have him around at all. Like he was not in the
Hmm.
episode basically at all.
They already really did those scenes at that time though. That was when they were going to the future. So those
Yeah.
scenes already happened. We didn't
Yeah.
really need to see those again. As
No.
a viewer of the show,
hmm
I thought this was a good episode too. It felt like kind of a soft production, like because they're trying to get people to because it's like a standalone adventure this season.
Yeah.
It felt like it was like Rayner was like your everyman, like or whatever, your average viewer who doesn't know anything about the show. And it's like
hmm
here I was going to take you a tour on our you know spot check our adventures over the last 4 years.
Yeah.
And it's like I don't know what's going
Another.
on here. Well, this was when blah 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 blah.
Yeah. Another great example of that is the. Oh, Stamets, he lives outside of time because of his tardigrade DNA. I'm like, oh,
It's like
what?
Wait, that's a new thing?
I didn't.
That's all stuff that was established in season one. Like,
But like,
I remember
Oh,
that from
it's
season one.
just
I
such
saw
a.
that in season one
yeah,
because he got the little the
Yeah.
space.
Yeah.
What was it called? The cow? No, what is it called?
the
the tardigrade?
tardigrade.
Yeah,
Yeah.
was it the
It's like a
the
macro
creature?
tardigrade that exists, and it
That's what
tears
it's
that
called, a
security team
tardigrade?
apart.
Tardigrade.
Yeah.
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 Isn't that a
Yeah.
Like
real thing?
a water bear.
Yes.
Yeah,
It's a
those are
water
Yeah.
bear
real.
Only
in
they're
real
like
life.
microscopic.
Yeah.
Yeah, this one was macroscopic because it kept
Yeah.
eating people.
Yeah. It
Right.
was just
So
it was just such an like exposition-y line that
So
was
what?
so thrown away that I was just like,
So
sorry,
why does
what?
that mean he lives outside of time? I don't get
I
it.
don't know.
Oh.
I
Because
don't
it's like it's from
know.
the mycel network that they travel when they do their spore drive thing.
But like they've
So
never.
the tardigrade lived in that, and they used his
So
DNA
Yeah.
so Stamets can interface with the
But I
technology.
didn't think Stamets was just hanging out there all the time. Like I know he can, but I didn't like know that was his
Well, I
baseline.
think that first season episode where Harry Mudd puts the ship in a time loop and keeps killing Captain Lorca. I
Yeah.
think Stamets is outside of time. Then he's the one that can help Burnham. He's trying to convince Burnham to help him, but he's only got
so
like
then
15 minutes to do it.
what happens when Stamets is on a
Right.
what happens when
Okay.
Stamets is on a regular Federation ship and they go into warp? Because that's a time warp, right? So what does
Well,
he?
they have that special chamber that he goes in to interface with the spores.
Okay, this is
So
all.
that's the thing, right?
What?
Yeah. So that's where he
You don't
interfaces,
need to
but
really know
like,
that
does he
though.
interface? Like that's the thing. I didn't think he was interfacing all the time, and that's why I was confused. And also, like, what?
I think the problem is that there's all sorts of things that are being contrived, like all sorts of things that are just kind of being forced to work with this plot.
Mhm.
And you're like, oh, okay, I guess that's a thing. Stamets is outside of time. All right, that makes sense. And then at the end where she's trying to convince I don't even know who she is, the bridge crew member that dies. And she's like, okay, I guess yeah, I believe you for some reason. That's kind of shoehorned in. And you're like, well, how did that happen? So that's kind of what bothers me about this episode is that there's so many things that are you just have to just say, okay, fine. I guess I'm not going to think about it too much. I need to believe this in order for the plot to move forward. And that doesn't really make for a satisfying episode, right? Like you want things to internally make sense, and you want the writers to be clever and to do things in interesting and new ways. And I think that's always missing, especially from this one.
I feel like Namir, that you and I owe Alan at least one positive thing about this episode.
I do have a positive thing. Actually, I do have a positive thing.
Okay,
and that's I love the Zora scene where they go into the future, and they land, no one's on the ship, everything's gone wrong, and Zora's there, and she's just been like hanging out for 1,000 years. It's just so, I don't know, there's something just really like tragic about that. And then at the end they leave, and she's like, okay, bye, and then they take off, and so she's just gonna be there.
Please set everything right. He says, "Please set everything right," as they transport behind.
But
away.
But wait a second. What do you mean? Because they're not affecting the future. Nothing they do matters. There's no causality.
Except for that one, I think, because that was like
why?
Because it's their future. But it's
the
what?
Yeah.
No.
All the other times where they're going into the past.
Why does that make a difference?
I'm just saying. I'm not defending it. I'm just saying that they went into the past, so they weren't affecting the past. But the future they went to was a future where they had failed in the present. So if they failed the whole thing in the present, it would have affected that future timeline thing.
So they went to a possible future, like an alternate future? So then why would changing anything in the past change an alternate future?
Because them being stuck in the time loop caused the alternate future was the actual future.
No.
Alan, back me up here.
I don't think so, guys.
Yeah.
I don't think this is right. I don't think
it was
this
a nice
is right.
moment between Zora and the crew, because I mean Zora, like the Discovery computer, is now self-aware, and and she just like it's like
I don't understand what doesn't make sense. What doesn't make sense to me?
Because they weren't jumping from alternate timelines. It was all one timeline, right?
But what I'm saying
the cone. Did you see the cone?
With their direct future.
No, it's a spiral cone.
Yeah.
It's
in the present. In the present, they're in a situation where their time is. They're in the time bomb situation.
Yeah.
If they fail in the time bomb situation, then that future happens.
But that future is always going to happen because that's their future. It's just a single timeline. That's an inevitable future. It's not an alternate. Because they can't affect the past because they're in this time bubble.
But they can affect the present. And that's what the whole episode is about.
Spending way too much time on this.
Really?
I don't
think this
didn't
is the
Janeway
thing
say the past is the future, the future is the past. I'm like, it all gives me a head.
But that's the thing that like
Janeway said it best.
She didn't say that. That was the lizard that said that.
The present, the past, they're both in the future. The future is in the past.
The future is the past is the future. It all gives me a headache.
I don't know. If you're gonna write an episode around time travel, you should make sure that internally it makes sense. Like the logic makes sense.
You know what?
Tell us.
Alan, you've seen Prodigy.
I have.
Right?
This is like one of those episodes. There's an episode like this in
There
Prodigy.
isn't. Only it's excellent.
It was really good.
It's
because in that one it's like shattered as well in Voyager, but it's like at one point the time is passing really slowly for people in the middle of the ship. Yeah. And then it's passing slow or faster and faster, slower and slower the further they go out towards the exterior of the ship.
That's
one
cool.
person is stuck in each separate time, and there's one
person
like, that's able to move through them, and it's so well done.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because I think Rock has to like spend her whole life or something, doesn't she? Like trying to figure out the problem because she's in the one that's like really slow,
and she learns so much. Oh
yeah, that was kind of
she's so sad.
That sounds like a great episode.
It's so good. Oh my god! If you watch any episode of Prodigy, watch that episode.
Yeah, it's really good.
I think I will.
Yeah, it's the whole show is fantastic. Like it's really good.
I owe one positive to Alan for this. For this
episode. Sorry. Go ahead.
Yes. Yeah. So I really liked Captain Leoben in this show. I thought it was fantastic. and especially like what he does at the end, where he connects with the crew, and specifically how he connects. It's not just that he connects with I don't know his name, the lieutenant who becomes a lieutenant commander, but he connects with Stamets. He's like, Paul, let's do this thing, and they have that little moment.
That was good.
Yeah, let's show the old dogs, know some things.
It's so quotable, this episode.
Know some things.
No, yeah. I think he's the character this show needed, because all these shows need a character that's the audience, and this show has never really had an audience representative. Where it's like, it's like Farscape with John Crichton. If anyone watched Farscape, he's just like anybody from Earth who's like, oh, now I'm in a weird situation. Now what the fuck's going on?
Yeah,
I get that reference.
Oh, thank you.
But the other thing is everybody else on the show is basically the same, right? They're all nice. They all like each other. They all really work together. They all want to hug each other. It's fine, but it's very flat. It's kind of boring. Like he's the only one that comes in and wants to do things a little bit differently, and has a different approach to things. He's a little.
He basically takes Burnham. Your methods suck. Is basically what
yeah.
That was awesome.
Right. But that's what makes it interesting, right? Like there's a little bit of tension there. They they're butting heads a little bit. And I don't know if I agree with Burnham's approach. I might agree with Raynor's approach. I'm like, what Raynor's saying kind of makes a lot of sense on a starship, But that it adds that extra kind of like flavor, like a little bit of depth to what's actually happening. Because if it was just like, hey, I think we should do this, and you're like, yeah, that's a really good idea. Let's do that. Okay, and then they do it. Okay, great. That's kind of boring.
Well, it's interesting what you said, Alan, about him representing like the normal person, because I see what you mean, because he's different. But at the same time, I feel like almost like the opposite. I feel like he's the only person who's actually in Starfleet, and everybody else on the show is like people at home. They behave like
that too.
Like
so. That's why I find that this crew is unrelatable. Like it's like it doesn't feel like people I know. Like it seems like he has.
But you don't know anybody.
It seems like they seem kind of plastic.
We feel like we
they
do.
Seem like kind of plastic people.
Yeah.
And now this guy feels more real, and it's like I relate to this guy, and I'm like I don't get this crew either. I'm like, why are they so happy all the time and huggy and weird? It's like they're
except when they're not. Except when they're angsty. Sometimes they're like super angsty too.
But even then, their angst is weird. The way they express their angst is weird.
What do you mean?
So yeah.
What do you mean, Alex?
It's like you say, like this show, people are always describing their feelings, or they're telling other people, describing their feelings. Like, no, you're feeling this way now, and I'm like, they're always telling and not showing, and it's very weird. I mean, it's the mark of poor writing, usually, in my opinion. And that's interesting because I looked up the writer for this episode because I didn't recognize the name, and he's like a story editor on this show, but this is like his first writing credit. So I'm like, hey, they should make this guy write more, I think. Because it's better.
Yeah. I don't know. Or
but
less.
now the show's done, so it's a moot point. Yeah.
So is this a season 10 episodes?
Yes.
So it seems to me, I mean, I'm not going to argue with this particular episode. It's a fine episode. But it seems weird to me that they would basically stall the whole arc of the season for one episode.
Because they do that a lot.
Don't they need that episode to move the plot along?
I know.
Like, it just
apparently not.
You'll see Kurtzman in interviews saying it's like, oh, we don't do filler. We keep focus. That's why we have short seasons. There's no filler.
I'm convinced he doesn't watch any of these episodes
Agree.
or read any of these scripts. I don't think he does.
Yeah.
I feel like he doesn't watch the old ones either.
Because it's like the third season, they were doing that burn arc, and then right in the middle, there's this whole two-parter that's completely irrelevant. Going back to the Mirror universe and getting rid of and going through the Guardian of Forever and that Giorgio, that all this stupid crap, and I'm like, this has nothing to do with the burn plot that they're trying to solve.
Especially because she came to the future in the first place, and then they're like, okay, well now we got to get her out of here. Well, like she could have just
because
not.
she has to make her own movie.
Yeah, that is true.
It's like it's totally contrived. It makes no sense, and it's like right in the middle of the season. It's like, let's just stop doing what we're doing and go to the alternate reality. And I'm like, what? I'm like, it's dumb. It's like, and the Klingon War, even right out of the gate, you had the season 1 where it's like, okay, we're doing the Klingon War, cool. And then they go to they go to the Mirror Universe, and I'm like, what?
Although to be fair, that was cool.
Well, but it made no sense though for the story. I'm like, and then they just.
But then the story
became.
And then
they come back, and the war is almost over.
Yeah.
I wanted to see the war. I didn't want to see them go to the Mirror Universe for no reason.
I wish
you out.
Anyway, it's a lot of that. There is still a lot of filler. Anyway, that's the point I'm making. It's like
I wish they would have gone. They would have gone back. You know what would have made this episode is if they went to a timeline and turned a corner and Anson Mount was there, and it was like, what's going on? And that would have been great.
I mean, it would have been great if they'd had they name dropped Lorca, like.
Yeah.
Yeah, running into
Lorca.
I was
kind of hoping Jason Isaacs would show up. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and obviously, cool. Especially if this was a money saver episode, like, that's not gonna happen. But
yeah,
still,
you know what? I like the idea of her just appearing in front of Anson Mount, and then in Strange New Worlds, they have an episode where Burnham appears, and he's like, "Hey," and then she disappears, and then they don't explain it.
That's brilliant. I love that.
That would be amazing.
But it wouldn't happen because was she on the Enterprise or on the Discovery? I'm confused. I didn't see season 2.
Whatever.
Who cares?
None of this has to make sense anyway.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter. It's all one timeline.
I mean, it was space and time that they were,
That's true.
But they were always on the Discovery.
There was a screenshot of the ISS Enterprise. So I think they might go Mirror Universe this season, and I'm kind of curious if they do, if it'll be like Mirror Anson Mount. I'd be kind of curious if
maybe
that'd be cool.
I don't know if they do it. That'd be cool if they did, but
I feel like that's pretty. I feel like would be pretty cool for them.
And they could totally do it. I mean, they're all there in the same lot. I'm like, hey, we got a couple scenes for you. Just come across the hall.
One's downtown, the other one's in Mississauga.
Toronto, whatever. They're in the Toronto area.
Yeah, travel expenses between Toronto and Mississauga are huge. They're not going to ship everybody over there. No way. Their budget is too tight.
For a stunt cameo, they totally would. I can see it.
Maybe. I don't know.
You just take the GO train. Yes, Jenny?
I have a nitpicky question.
I'm ready. My
nitpicky question is, was there a shipyard in San Francisco?
Oh, I love that, because that I thought about it and I'm like, why aren't they in like Utopia Planitia? But Utopia Planitia wouldn't exist because they were before TOS in the first season,
right?
When Discovery was made. And the Enterprise always had the plaque that said San Francisco Yards.
Oh, it was.
So there must be a dry dock.
I knew you'd know. Yeah. Okay, that makes me happy. Okay, thank you.
That's cool. That means Discovery's being built the same place that the Enterprise would have been built.
Yeah. Okay, that makes sense.
I don't want to be the one a-hole here, but what really bothers me with the J.J. Abrams universe is this idea of like building spaceships on the planet. It's like so stupid. It doesn't make any sense.
That's crazy.
But they built Space Shuttle on the Earth.
Well, because we can't physically build it in space yet. But
that's right, Alan.
Like you should build a spaceship.
Well, maybe they can't physically build it in space.
Wait. Why? Alan, why are you arguing? What exactly are you arguing?
I don't know
what you're arguing.
I thought it was cool. I thought it was a cool little note.
It's what it's like. It's like building an aircraft carrier in the desert.
Yeah, it's pretty much the same.
Well, what bugged me in the JJ movies was just that they were building it in Iowa.
If they had a choice, why would they do anything in Iowa?
It's not even
it was just something to do. I think they were just trying to do something different. But it's like
which is great. Yeah. I feel better about it knowing that yes, indeed, there actually was a shipyard in San Francisco.
Yeah, but I don't think the shipyard was ever in San Francisco. I think the shipyard was in orbit. Yeah, Utopia Planitia is like a place on Mars, but they don't.
Yeah, I know.
They don't make the ships on Mars. They make the ships in orbit over Utopia Planitia. So to my mind, they built the Enterprise and all the ships over San Francisco in orbit, not in San Francisco.
I think we got to go to Memory Alpha on this one, folks.
Well, Memory Alpha is just going to tell us what we're in those TV shows. They're not going to tell us anything else.
I did chuckle at the fact, again, it's another example of like, oh, it just happens to be exactly where you can see the Golden Gate Bridge from.
Yeah,
But to be fair, the only thing that actually made sense of that was I was trying to figure the angle of where are they exactly? And it was like, oh, they would actually be in the water. I'm like, that would make sense. That'd be the only place that to really... I mean, no, it doesn't make sense to build the ship in the water, but it would there's more space there in the water than there would be anywhere else. Because it's hilly all around there. So
in the bay?
Where would you...
According to Memory Alpha,
yes.
The San Francisco Fleet Yards, also known as the San Francisco Navy Yards, or simply the San Francisco Yards, was a Starfleet shipyard located in Earth orbit, with its planet-side offices located in the city of San Francisco.
There you go. That makes sense.
But would they build modular parts of it?
Oh my god!
And then transport it to... Or maybe that worker just had a poster. That was an inspirational poster he had. That's why he was working. It's like, I just want to feel like I'm at home.
He gets space sick.
It's like Captain Pike's quarters in Strange New Worlds. He has like that that vista on his wall, so he doesn't feel like he's floating in the void.
Mm-hmm.
Does anybody else want to say anything else about this episode before we go to the ratings?
Can I just say, I mean, I haven't mentioned this, and I think I mentioned in our chat, maybe chat with someone else, I can't remember now, but Anthony Stapp, like, just his pages and pages and pages of bullshit technobabble.
Anthony Rapp?
He's amazing at it. He's amazing at delivering technobabble. He's always so passionate and energetic. And I'm like, how does he do this? How does he memorize this stuff? It's just like paragraphs of it. He's like, blah, 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 quantum, blah, 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 and mycelial, and I need to get the work.
No, he's good.
He's like, he has way more jargon than I think even Geordi or Data ever spewed. Mm-hmm. And it's just crazy. But like, how much talent does he have cue cards there? Because I don't know how you could memorize this stuff.
Yeah, and actually, this episode reminded me that I like him.
Yeah, he's so good. Like, he's so good
because it's just been so long since he's done anything, you know.
It's a hard thing to sell, and he sells it. Like,
he really does.
All that nonsense. Mm-hmm. Like, I believe you. I believe that this is actual nonsense.
Yeah, because he's not. You know, it's not just like he's delivering it believably, but he's also like he's stoked about it. You know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I know. Like, he puts personality into it. Mm-hmm. He's not only just reciting it and memorizing it; he's actually putting personality into it while he's doing it. And I think it's impressive. But
I thought he was great in the Breakfast Club.
Yeah, he was fun.
Is he in the Breakfast Club?
No.
Wait a minute, he's not in the Breakfast Club.
He's not in the Breakfast
Club.
No, he
wasn't.
Club.
What are you talking about?
He's the kid.
That's Anthony Michael Hall.
Yeah.
He even convinced me for a minute. I was like, right. No, he's not that.
I was like, is he making a joke? Is this like a multi-level joke that he's making? I don't know. But no, it's not.
Is he a child actor? What was he?
He was in Rent.
Something, but
he started on Broadway.
He was not.
I thought he was in one of those like John Hughes movies or something, though.
He might have been
like Weird Science or one of them. But
this whole time I thought he was from the Breakfast Club. We need to look this up now because we can't let this go.
Okay, he's definitely not in the Breakfast Club.
Breakfast Club.
There are 5 people in the Breakfast Club. Wait, 5?
But they do look kind of similar, and they both do. They both have Anthony. We'll give Lucas that.
Oh, he was in Adventures in Babysitting.
Yes, that's
it. Was he one of the kids?
Yeah, no. He was. Yes.
Was he?
Yes, he was. Yep.
That's really interesting.
I've watched it recently. Whatever he was in, I've watched it in like the last 5 years or so.
Nice.
Yeah, that's it.
But those two movies are not similar at all, other than being from the 80s.
No.
Yeah, that's what
Keith Coogan is in
something like that.
Adventures in Babysitting.
Okay. So let's do our final thoughts and our rating of this episode out of 10. Let's start with Namir.
Yeah. The more we talked about it, the more I didn't like the episode. You convinced me to go the other way.
I failed.
I like the Zora scene. The internal logic of the time travel stuff still bothers me. I think it's it's like they didn't try hard enough, which is weird. So I'm going to give it a 3 out of 10. Alan.
Okay, let's go with.
You're wrong.
Let's go with Jenny for a rebuttal.
There was definitely things I liked about it, and it did feel Star Trek-y. I don't know that it was executed like it was like it tasted like it was Star Trek-y the way that like La Croix tastes like the name of whatever it is, right? It's like you get there's a hint of it there, you know.
It becomes a food metaphor.
Yeah, but it's like when you really like take a big sip of it, you're sort of like, there's something missing. Yeah, but
good.
And Callum Keith Rennie was amazing again.
I'm gonna let Alan go last so we can end on a good note.
But I'm giving it a 7.
You're giving it a 7?
Yes.
Out of 10? Okay.
Yes.
I'll also give it a 7 out of 10. I feel like
what? You spent an hour slagging it. Are you gonna give it a 7?
Maybe we turned Lucas. We didn't turn Namir, but Lucas, I turned him.
I mean, I think I have the same general. I'm giving it like a Discovery 7. A Discovery 7 is not the same as a TNG 7. So for Discovery, I watched it. I enjoyed myself. I was following this little science fiction adventure. I didn't have a lot of expectations.
If I knew you were going to give it a 7, I would have given it a little bit of a higher score because now I seem like a jerk.
No, you sold your case.
You stick with your.
Well, you were a jerk. Yeah.
So, I think I give it that because it's. I think of all the episodes of Discovery that I've watched, I think it's the one that I was the least bored watching, and so yeah, that's what it gets. Okay, Alan.
Yeah, I mean, as someone who's watched Discovery since the inception, I would give this one high marks because it is probably one of the best hours they've done. Like, I mean, again, I will agree with Lucas. I'm like, a high mark for Discovery is still probably lower than a high mark for Next Generation. But, this is probably the cylinders they've been firing on. Watch the show. So, I had a really good time. It finally felt like Star Trek to me, and which is something that struggled a lot with watching this show. It's a lot of emotions and talking, and a lot of boring pacing, and it, it can get kind of gloomy and needless wars and phaser battles and crap like that, space karate and garbage. So to see them do an actual like Star Trek episode and not have any of that stupid flash, all that window dressing is great, and I loved it. So I'm going to give this one an 8. Like, I figure this is if I have to play top tier Discovery, this is definitely a top tier Discovery. Like, probably the most fun I've had watching this show since like early season 2 when they introduced Anson Mount, because that was a pretty strong run, those first half dozen episodes in season 2. And looking at a Star Trek feel, like that's probably the only time I felt like this show felt like Star Trek was that period. So it's the most fun I've had since then. So I would give this one an 8.
Nice.
I don't know. I feel like you're just giving it like a gold star or like a participation ribbon that we all got
I watched
for
it
Field
twice,
Day.
and I had a good time the second. I think I enjoyed it more the second time too, because I feel like I was kind of tired the first time I watched it. And
maybe you need to watch it a second time, Namir, to fully appreciate it. You said you were doing dishes and changing diapers or whatever.
You know what? I have been having trouble sleeping, so.
Okay, so we'll be back next week to review Discovery Season 5, Episode 5. Until then, let's fly.
Let's fly the dogs of war.
Just where in the future the